Spacey Sims, and we are back with more of The Sims 4 Where Dreams Reside, which is our story kind of thing that we're doing that is based on the book Every Heart a Doorway. And today we are going to be talking about Jack, and I'm kind of excited about this. So the thing that I want to tell you right off the bat about Jack is Jack's story is taken largely from Every Heart a Doorway. There was a story in that and a character that I just really loved. I loved the whole thing behind it, so that's kind of where Jack came from. So, like, 99% of Jack is just a character from Every Heart a Doorway. I can't take credit for any of this, really. I want to tell you that first off because I told you that there was a character. I mean, there are some. I realized afterward I was kind of looking through the synopsis of the book again, and I was like, oh, well, there is one character who lived in a world that was like Dia de Muertos, and I was like, oh, well, that's kind of like Lane's world. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I probably had a little bit in the back of my mind like that when I kind of. It was also partly because like The Sims, like I was looking at like the stuff that I could use, the custom content and the parts of the game, and that kind of. So I'm sure some of that kind of came from there. And there's other worlds that are kind of like bits and pieces pulled from, but this one is like 100%. Like, I just really like the character. I'm not going to say anything right now. I mean, obviously, for those of you who have read the book, you probably already know where I'm going with this. But for those of you who haven't read the book, who want to read the book, this might not be a good episode to watch just because it's going to be spoilers. And I don't want to spoil this character or their story for you guys. So if you haven't read the book and you really want to read the book and you don't want spoilers, I would say skip this episode, read the book, and then come back. And then, because then you'll know. But so I'm giving you that preface now. If you decide to keep watching and you don't really care about spoilers, that's great. If you do, like, stop watching now because we're going to get into it. So for those of you who have read the book, or again, like I said, don't care about spoilers, Jack's story is pretty much based on Cade from Every Heart a Doorway. So I absolutely, and the reason why I put Jack in and I did this with him is because when I read the book, I just love what they did. Like, they kind of, there was that twist, where Nancy goes in and she's kind of like an asexual character, but she meets Cade and she's like, yeah, he's a handsome boy, like, whatever, like, this kid's cute. And Cade lives in the attic and kind of has been there in the school for a long time. Is kind of, I feel like there's almost, and again, like, it's been a while since I read the book, but I almost felt like there was a part of him that was like, yeah, I got kicked out of the world that I was in, and I'm never going to get back there. And there's like this reality, like, look at his face. Jack looks like he's feeling it. There was this reality that set in, like, yeah, that's where I belong, but I got kicked out of that world and I'm never going back and I have to deal with this. And there's like that, I have to deal with reality, but I don't want to. Like, I don't really, like, but you still don't feel like you belong. And I felt like that was something that was even stronger because Cade, like Jack, is a trans boy. So Jack was born Jacqueline, but never felt right in her body, and has gone through the transition and is dealing with that and lives life as a boy because that's who he is. He's a boy. And that's kind of like the character of Cade in the book. And I just love that because I feel like there's obviously, when you have any kind of body dysmorphia at all, whether it's you're in the wrong gender or there's just something about you that you feel is wrong, it's difficult, because you have to deal with, this is who I am on the inside, but the outside doesn't match. And there's this discrepancy with trying to accept, like, trying to be who you are, but you can't. And a lot of people who don't have that issue don't understand that. They don't get, it's like, well, you just got to be confident in who you are. It's like, but if the who I am on the inside doesn't match who I am on the outside, that doesn't help. Obviously, like, I'm a girl on the inside, I'm a girl on the outside. That's the way I've always been. So that works. But when I was younger growing up, there was the person I was on the inside and the things that I enjoyed and like clothes and fashion and things like that. I could never do on the outside because I was a fat kid. And they didn't make cute, trendy clothes for fat teenagers. It was like, well, you're skinny or you dress like a 45-year-old woman when you're 15, you know? And it was just, and it's something that still like grips you no matter how old you get, no matter what you can do. You're always like, this is the way this is the way I feel. And I'm not like the person who looks like I should be bone skinny in a size 0. Like that was never who I wanted to be. But it's like when you're like, this is who I imagine myself to be. And I imagine myself and like, these are the things that I want to wear and the type of person I am on the inside. And you can't be that person on the outside. It's difficult. So I kind of really liked, oh, we're going to have you, we need to have you take a vacation day. Take a vacation day. So I really loved the fact that this character was in there because Cade was a very real character. He was very genuine, but I also feel like that the whole thing behind his story of going into this world and getting kicked out because he was a boy was really, I don't know, there was a part of me that identified with it in just it's like even in the world that you feel like you belong in, there's something wrong with you. And it's awful to say that, but in a way I kind of feel like that was what he was dealing with. Like, hey, I have to live in this reality. This isn't where I belong, but this is where I'm stuck because the reality is this other fantasy world, this world that I went to that I belong in, kicked me out because they wanted a girl and I'm a boy, even though outside I'm a girl. But I do highly recommend reading the book, even just for Cade's story. I just found it, I don't know, there was just something so kind of sad and beautiful about it. The fact that when he was a child and his parents dressed him like a girl because he was born female, that's why he was taken into this fairyland. But yet inside, in his heart and in his soul, he was a boy, and he was kicked out of this fairyland because they were like, wait, we took you because you're a girl on the outside, but on the inside you're a boy, and that's not right. Because even in that fairy world that he was taken to, they recognized who he was inside, not just on the outside. And I think that's really nice because you look at it like, well, it's sad because he got kicked out of this fairy world because he wasn't what they wanted him to be. They wanted him to be a girl, but he wasn't. But they recognized who he was on the inside. Not, you're a girl on the outside, therefore you're a girl. And it's like, no, but I'm a boy. My heart, my soul, my mind, everything about me is a boy. And that's, unfortunately, that acceptance of you're actually a boy in a girl's body, we're kicking you out because that's not what we want. Like, there's like, it's like the beautifulness of the acceptance that this other world accepted him for who he really is on the inside. But there's also the sadness of, but we're not going to accept because that's not fitting with what we pulled you in here to be like our fairy princess here, and you're not. Like, so it's like a tragic beauty, and it messes with your mind, and you're like, oh, I love it, but I hate it, and I can't process it fully. I've never seen anyone play Grimm's guitar. Hilarious. It was just a really touching, and I just really liked that. And so that's kind of, Jack is Cade. Jack, had the same, what I imagine, and if I like I said, I don't remember 100% of everything that happened in the book. I remember like the key points. And so when I was writing Jack's story, I kind of took most of it from Cade's story, but I also kind of put things in as to, this is the way I feel like Jack would have felt in his life. And again, like I said, a lot of it could be, in the back of my mind, things that I'm remembering about the book and pulling forward that I'm not consciously aware that I remember. So I really don't take any credit for Jack's story because Jack's story is Cade's story. Like I said, what I remember and what I've kind of just pieced together if I'm remembering correctly, or just filling in the blanks that I forgot. Um, so of course, Jack was born Jacqueline. But as Jacqueline, she never felt right. And it took obviously a while. I think at a young age, Jacqueline kind of knew I'm not a girl. Like, even though my parents dress me like a girl and everyone treats me like that, it's not right. And I think in her heart and in her mind and her soul, she knew she was a boy. And I think it takes a while when, I mean, like I said, I don't know necessarily how it feels when you're trans, but I know what it feels like when you have any kind of body dysmorphia issues to not, you don't quite understand what it is about you that's different, and it's hard to express because people are expecting you to be a certain way and act a certain way, and you're like, but that's not who I am. It's even the same when everyone's expecting you as a woman to, oh, you want to have kids and you want to get married and have babies and you dream about your wedding and all that. And I'm like, I never fantasized about my wedding when I was a kid. I never played house. I hated it because I'm not a typical girl. I'm not a boy on the inside or anything, but I don't have that maternal instinct. I don't have that desire. I don't even like dusting my apartment. Okay. uh, so I mean, anytime that there's this almost gender norm or this societal norm and you don't fit into that bubble, it's difficult. It's difficult to explain to people why, look, I get it, I'm a woman and you have a baby and you think I care, but I don't. Get it away from me, And people look at you like you're weird, like, oh, you're going to change your mind. When you meet the right person, you'll change your mind. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not. I'm pretty sure I know who I am more than you, strange person. So I feel like, Jack kind of had to deal with that. Like, oh, you know what? Whatever. Also, okay, study hard test. I don't know. Even just having to deal with, like, what if when Jack was living life as a girl, like, well, what if you just wanted to be a tomboy, but your parents always put you in frilly dresses? I mean, you have to deal with that kind of issue. Like, I don't like wearing frilly dresses and having to be super demure and perfect and prissy. I want to go play in the mud and do tomboy kind of stuff. And that was an issue. You have to deal with that. Uh, and then you have to deal with knowing even further, the longer you kind of are involved in your own thought process and trying to think like, okay, well, this is weird. And the more you delve into who you are.
Jaruk, Ispa.
Are you calling everyone to meal? Oh, you are the sweetest. Oh, he's just adorable. You have to deal with, then realizing, well, wait, it's not just like my parents want to dress me in frilly dresses and make me be like super prissy, prim, proper girl, and I want to be a tomboy. I want to be an actual boy, and that's an extremely difficult situation. And that's kind of, I mean, that's kind of the life that Jack was forced into. And I believe in the book that was like kind of Cade's situation, like wearing all the frilly dresses and everything that just were totally uncomfortable for him. And like Cade, I mean, I can't stress enough that this is taken full out of the book, so don't give me credit for this. You know what I mean? That Jack was, taken into this magical fairyland, and it was like, and he was happy there. It seemed right and it fit and he loved being there, but they took him thinking, oh, it's our fairy princess. This is little prissy princessy girl. And when they kind of realized who Jack was on the inside, that, wait, you know what? You may be in a dress and you may have the physical characteristics of a girl, but everything about you, your mind, your heart, your soul is a boy. That's not, you're a prince and we don't want a prince. We want a fairy princess. Like, that's just not gonna. And I believe in Cade's world there was like a goblin king. I just imagined David Bowie in Labyrinth. Oh, God, yeah. You've seen the meme, like, this is crazy. I just met you and this is crazy. Here's my labyrinth. I stole your baby. And it's like, you can keep him. I don't know why Sarah would go into the labyrinth and be like, I'm getting my brother back. Fuck Toby. I'm staying with the Goblin King. Because I don't know. David Bowie in that movie. I think that's why I have issues with drag queens too. I blame Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie for like kind of starting it off like back in the day, watching that when I was little. But can we just replace this? Can you mop that up? And then you need to go do something social. Because you're or you can talk to the toilet. That's true, converse. Have a friendly conversation with the toilet. We don't friendly chit chat. We'll have you friendly chit chat with the toilet because you're lonely. That's really sad. I talk to myself too. But yeah, I just never but David Bowie in that movie, I think it just totally confused me for a while as a child. It's just like, I don't know, because he's wearing so much makeup and it's just so dragalicious, and it's like, yeah, I've got issues. I realize that. But yeah, so but yeah, Jack was really happy in that fairyland, but obviously it didn't really last long because when they realized that he was a boy in this girl's body, they kind of sent him home, and he knew that he was never going to go back there. And this was kind of when he was a little bit younger. I want to say like preteen kind of age. So he hadn't quite admitted to himself, I think, who he was. I think he knew on the inside that he was. We're going to take a shower. I think he knew in the back of his mind, he knew he wanted to be a boy. He was a boy. But I don't think he had kind of come to that realization yet. And when he went to this world and when he was rejected back and when, you know, the people of. Oh, Enecmity is the name of the world he went to. It's a fairy world named Enecmity. I created the name of the world, and so I wanted to share it with you because I put that out in. I don't actually really remember. I don't think there was a name to the world that Cade went to. I really think it was just like a fairyland. But when the people of Enecmity sent Jack back, I think that was like the catalyst for him to start going, you know what? They sent me back because he always, I mean, obviously he always felt wrong. And like, I don't want to be in these frilly dresses. I want to be more a tomboy. I want to play in the dirt. I want to do different things than what my parents think are right for me to do. And that's difficult. And I think deep down inside, he always knew. He knew he was a boy. But I think that realization needed to be pulled to the surface. And being kicked out of Enactmity was that pull, that catalyst that kind of made him go, you know what? I'm a boy. Like, because the Denzians of this world were like, you are a boy. Like, you may look like a girl on the outside. You dress like a girl and you physically might be a girl, but you're a boy. No, out. And like, I think it was that kind of where it was setting in because he was still, I think, I don't want to say in total denial, but I think it was just one of those like, because he'd been forced into this tight stereotype. Not even just like the difference of, well, you were born a girl, so you're a girl, and people don't get that. It was the were born a girl and you have to be in this tiny little bubble of what his parents thought a girl should be. And whine about your unfair life. Sure, why not? Heartfelt compliment. Brighten day. We really need to. I guess he's a vegetarian. I don't remember doing that. Adopt his caregiver. That's adorable. Tell a dramatic story. Give her a hug. I'm just trying to get him up to. What's her problem? Oh, dear God. Honey, we're gonna. Okay, we're gonna. Like, Dinah's gonna fucking die over here, and like, we can't have that happening. Kids would have to go, like, far, far away. We need her. I just need to get his stuff up. I feel bad for, Dinah, like, being ready to drop dead over here, but we're just. Anyway, so, yeah. So, I mean, that kind of forced him to realize who he was and kind of, you know, it freed him, which was a good thing, obviously, because now he can live his life the way he's meant to be and who he's meant to be. And there is a part of Jack that is happy about that, obviously, because like he feels a lot freer. Like, oh my God, like I've been living with this burden trying to force myself into this tiny bubble that I don't belong in, and I finally understand myself, and I can just let go of all that crap and just be me and be happy about it. But there's still also that sadness of, never feeling right in the world and then
Zayoga.
coming back and being like, well, I'm in this world that I don't quite feel right in. Sure. Why am I answering it? I took the day off from school. So we're going to just cancel that. He's probably doing really shitty. Oh, your empathy and your empathy should be really high, sweet cheeks. Oh, he's going to get a D, that's why. Whatevs. We don't care.
Oh.
Um I kind of just lost my train of thought. Um but yeah, so that was that was his wake up call, and when he came back, he kind of told his parents this story about going into this fairyland, and and of course they're like, "Oh, well, our daughter is just telling stories about being a fairy princess. That's adorable, even though, honey, you're a little bit old for that." Um, but when he kind of said, I just they kicked me out because I'm a
Ooh.
boy, and that feels
Oh,
right to
yeah.
me, and like
Arsenic.
kind of came out to his family. It was like they were just horrified because they just none of that. They don't believe in anything like that. They weren't accepting, and they just seriously thought he had delusional problems. And that's kind of where Dinah stepped in and kind of came and got Jack and was like, "Look, yeah, because his parents kind of feel like coming here will cure him." But even that, like, Jack's been here for a long time. Like, that was like in his preteens. Like, he disappeared like 12 years old. And his parents tried to deal with it for a little while, but when he got into like 13 and the puberty age, when he started getting to this point, it was like, you know what, we can't deal with this. Like, you need to stop. He kept trying to dress like a boy, be a boy, and they got so sick of it. And he's been here for years. So he has been under Dinah's care for a lot long. Most of the kids are relatively new. They've been here a couple months, maybe a year. You know, Jack's just the resident forever.
Shovel, shovel.
Hey, you know what? You shouldn't walk in on him. And meanwhile, Lane's like, no fucks given that you just got walked in on. Okay, I'm just gonna cheat your bathing needs up. I don't really actually. What is her problem? She is pissed. Oh, she's tired. Go to fucking sleep. Um, Jack is the only one we care about right now. But, so it's kind of. It kind of broke him a little bit to think that his parents weren't really accepting, especially when it's a hard time in your life to be like, I'm not. I, to have this realization that you've always been, I don't want to say wrong, but you know what I mean? Like, things have always been wrong in your life. Like, you know what? I finally just came to terms and accepted who I am and found out who I am. And I feel relieved because I'm finally someone else. I'm finally accepting who
Starting to
I'm
get blue.
supposed to be. And then you want someone to understand. You want someone to be like, okay, it's cool. We'll help you. We'll work with you. And then to have your family not understand that, like, that's terrible. And I know people that have been through that. I know personally being through things like that. Like, when you think about who you are and you're like, you know what, this is who I am. And I just realized everyone's like, yeah, whatever. Or thinking that you're doing it for attention or whatever. And that's just, it's sad, because nobody wants to put themselves in a difficult situation for attention. Okay, there are people, but a majority of people don't. You know, people don't decide to be gay or lesbian or bisexual or trans to get attention. They do it because that's who they are. And it's like you come to that realization like, oh shit, you know? Um, so I mean I get it. But there's things, and it's really sad when you can't be kind of open and honest because people just kind of think, oh, roll your eyes. I mean, I've seen so many I'm we have a group at work that is like kind of the alliance for gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, like LGBTQ plus all the other letters I don't know. There's a lot of them. Um, and I'm an ally because I just believe you need to be who you are, and it doesn't really matter who you love as long as you love somebody, you know? Um, and I there was a point to that and I kind of just lost it. But even that, like you hear people's stories or, I mean, I love drag queens. I follow drag queens. So like I do have a lot of like even pages on Facebook or like groups and things that kind of talk about these issues. Or, you follow people on social media who are gay or lesbian or trans or something. You know what I mean? And it's just because it's like I'm accepting of that and these are decent people and it's just kind of one of those things like obviously somebody who's not you want to understand it, you know what I mean? Because you want to understand the things that other people go through. You want to be able to be supportive if you know someone that's going through those things, you know? Um and I just know from like reading so many comments and like different articles that you see on like Facebook. If you follow any kind of pages that might actually post and even if it's not like a what are you doing? Can you go like not do you need to do something, sweet cheeks? Go eat. What is wrong? You are falling apart, honey. Go. There you go. Tired of you just standing around being a lump. Um, and it's I see so many comments with people like, oh my god, there's so many labels and blah blah blah, and like getting mad at people for having a label. And it's like sometimes you need a
Turkey
label
prowl.
because it's part of.
Wow.
Are you going through a phase? We're gonna replace that. Oh, now you're going to bed. No, don't go to bed. I want you to go eat something before you go to bed. For God's sake. Um, and it's like sometimes people need a label so that you can understand yourself, And I get it, it gets confusing because there's a lot of different, there's like asexual and aromantic, and there's this and there's that, and it's like, face is a mess. I can't go anywhere looking like this. It's fine, don't overreact. Your face is scarred because you got into accidents. Oh, shoot. Okay, we'll replace this.
Oh, our nuck, 7 feet.
Good lord, everything in this house is falling apart, damn kids. Dinah, can you come mop this? What are you eating?
Oh,
Like a bowl of peas. It's fucking random. Where in the world did a bowl of peas come from? Is that like a normal food? Or is that like one of those like toddler foods? Like that we can now use? Like where did this bowl of peas come from? Anyway. So and I understand that it gets confusing. There's so many labels for things, and then there's like polyamorous, and then there's like there's spectrums and things, and it gets confusing. And I get it. People don't know, and I know that there are people who will absolutely use. Is this empty? Labels or things like that. There are people that do these things to get attention, and it is kind of fucked up. But majority of people don't do that. You know what I mean? A majority of people, it's nice to actually figure out who you are and understand it. Like, why is something is not working? Is somebody talking to somebody who's doing homework? We're glitched right now. I got to figure out why. Because, like, somebody's talking to somebody. There we go. Okay. We got glitchy. And it's difficult, and it's difficult when people think that. That's kind of why, and I know that there's a lot of people that feel that way, and that's kind of why I don't talk about a lot of things, with a lot of people in my life. It was actually because of things like that where people would be like, yeah, and they're talking about like all the labels and everything and I'm this and that and the other thing and it's one of those things where I was like reading something and I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. Let me look it up. Right? And you look up, okay, what is this? Like if you don't know what aromantic is, you'd look it up, right? If you don't know what this is, or especially because there's like the spectrum, and there's kind of terms that fit in bulk in different areas on this. And every time you're presented with this, I get it gets confusing, but like cisgender white people feel like I don't know why it's white people. I mean, it's just cisgender people are always like, I don't get it, and like whatever. It's like because you're normal, because you don't fit in, you fit into the normal bubble. That's why you don't understand it. Um, and I get it because I don't fit into a lot of bubbles. So I'm like, okay, so I don't understand what it's like to be transgender because I'm not, but I want to be able to empathize with the people and comprehend what they're going through and go, okay, I can not necessarily understand because obviously I'm not going through it. It's not gonna be the same, but I know what you're saying. I can empathize. I can say, okay, I understand body dysmorphia issues. I know it's nowhere near as severe, but it's hard because the only word that we have is say, I understand. I don't know, but I can understand. Like my brain can process what you're saying, and I can say, yes, I have felt similar, so I can comprehend the problems that you have and how it feels. Maybe not to the same extent, but it's still there nonetheless, you know? But it was actually, and so this is something that I've never talked about on here, but it was something that when I was reading one of these and someone mentioned um being demisexual. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I looked it up and I was like, it was actually the first time in my life that I read something and I was like, oh my God, I understand myself a little bit better. And what it really is that, okay, we're going to get into like heavy adult topics here. So most people, you know, if you're gay, you're attracted to men. If you're a lesbian, you're attracted to women. You know what I mean? Like bisexual, you're attracted to anybody. When you're demisexual, you don't have that physical attraction. You're closer on the asexual side. And it is really just because the attraction for you is based on a mental and emotional connection, a bond with someone. Like, I could talk to someone every single day and not feel the damn thing. But the more I get to know that person, the more we develop a bond that's an emotional bond, a mental bond. That's when all of a sudden it's like, oh, now there's an actual physical attraction. And it's weird because you don't really think of it as being abnormal because that's just the way you've always been. But I know it, but it's always felt weird because every single time you talk to someone, it's like, oh my God, that guy's so hot. I just want to do him and all this stuff. And you're like, because I admit he is attractive, but I just don't feel that. Like you feel nothing. Like your body, like there's a natural physical response when you are attracted to someone. When you're demisexual like me, I don't feel that at all. Like I could see someone and be like, they are attractive. Like I joke all the time about Tom Hiddleston and how that man is fine as fuck. But I really feel nothing. It's really more like my eyes like him. And I have been so conditioned, I've conditioned myself to act normal. It's almost, I'm like, I kind of liken it to, I know it's not the same, but like if you were gay and you were like, I gotta act straight and pretend, like, yeah, that chick's hot. Totally. And you're like totally in denial or you're trying to hide that I actually like guys. You know, it's more like I really just actually don't feel anything because like I'd have to get to know that person and there has to be something. And I've had people before where there is an instant bond, you know, where you feel something mentally and emotionally and physically for them because it's just that it's an imperceptible bond that most people aren't aware of. Like I have that awareness. Even though I hide it from myself a lot, I tend to put up walls and I'm like, la la, blinders on. I don't notice people or things. Like people can flirt with me and like, I don't know because I'm dumb. And it's not really because I'm dumb. It's because I got blinders on and I don't want to see it. You know, like I live in a bubble. But if there is that emotional and mental connection with someone, I know it's there and I feel it. I just put those walls up so I don't notice. And then all of a sudden they just come crashing down and it's like, oh, that's been there this whole time, hasn't it? Well, shit. So, like, that's my damage. But it's just, it's beneficial in a way because you don't have that. You're not like that person who's like, oh my God, I just need to go out and get some. I could care less. Like, I really do. But if I'm with someone that I have an emotional and mental connection with, it's a different story. It's, you know, and it's weird because most people don't get it. Like, I know so many people some people are overly, like those people that need to go to like they could get addictions for being overly sexual. And there are people who just in that normal range who just like, oh my God, yeah, that guy's so hot. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I get it. He's visually appealing. And my brain is like, yes, visually appealing. But it's like a nice painting. I'm going to admire it, but I don't really want to take it home with me, you know? And most people don't understand that because it's not, you know, quote unquote normal. Like everybody does this. Like, and I've talked to people where they just don't get it. Like, what? You just don't have any, you don't want to go out and like me? No, no desire to whatsoever. I'm perfectly fine not because I'm closer on the asexual side. For me, it's really only if there's that emotional, that mental and emotional bond with someone. And I don't have that with random strangers. You know what I mean? Like, and so it is difficult because most people don't get it. And they're like, well, that's not right. And you're like, but it is right. It's me. I don't talk about how you just go out to the club and pick up a new chick every weekend, do I? Like, I mean, I've had these conversations with people and I'm like, so you just because you need to go out and get you some doesn't mean everybody fits into that boat. Like, some people never want, like, but I feel like the people who are aromantic or asexual kind of have to deal with that. People are like, what? You don't want? And they're like, no, that's gross. I don't ever want to deal with that. And they're also superly aromantic. We're like, oh God, even just romance is just wrong, you know? But we tend to think like, well, that's totally not normal and you're weird or you're in denial. And it's like, no, some people are just wired differently. It's the same thing with being like, okay, so I was born in the woman's body and I just feel like a man. You weren't, like, your soul and your heart and your brain were in the wrong body. Like, it happened. Like, it's just how it works. And I really feel like we need to stop, like, trying to put everybody in these tiny little bubbles because not everybody is the same. Like, yes, we all have a heart. We all have lungs. We all have a liver, blah, blah, blah. Some people's hearts are on the wrong side of their body. I mean, you can't even say, like, well, everyone on the inside is the same. Well, not really, technically, because some people are born with heart conditions. Some people have their organs on the wrong side of their body. I mean, I think that's pretty rare, but it happens, right? And, like, so it's like, but so I don't understand when people can be like, oh, well, that could happen, but somebody can't have the brain of a boy in a woman's body or vice versa. Well, hello. I mean, it's just people are just, it's weird. It's really freaking weird that people just aren't accepting. And I understand when you're not presented with things, be like, well, this person's like 10 feet tall. And you're like, that doesn't seem right to me. I suppose it's possible, but really, is it? Until you're presented with it. But it's when you're presented with it and everybody's still in denial that it's like, okay, we just need to, you know, get over it. So I know this whole part wasn't really talking about Jack's story much and really just more talking about social issues. But, you know, I feel like they're important because, you know, I don't know, like, I know that I deal with stuff like that. Like, I don't talk really about being demisexual with people because it's one of those things that I didn't know for the longest time. It was literally in the last, like, year or so that I figured this out and went, oh my God, it finally makes sense. Like, I'm not weird. Like, when I have conversations, even with my best friend, and she'll be like, oh my God, this guy, or I fantasize about that guy. And it's like, yeah, I don't, okay. Or like talking about like when she first, like when you hit that point when you're discovering human beings and like that need, that desire, those hormones, like at a young, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I got those because definitely did not have thoughts like that when I was like 12. Like, what the fuck? Like, and it's scary and it's weird because it's like you're like, yeah, totally. And when you grow up and you like now I feel like it's almost nicer. Yes, unfortunately I feel like there's too many people in older generations like mine and older that don't understand these issues, but I feel like they're out there more and there are more people so it's easier when you're younger and you feel a certain way, you're gay, you're bisexual, you're trans, you're whatever, to be like, okay, there are other people out there and this is what it's like and there are people that understand it. There's resources for these things where there wasn't when I was younger. Like I didn't, I mean, obviously there were gay people and shit like that. I didn't know any of that. Like, and my parents weren't people that were like, oh my God, that's all wrong. They're not like closed-minded or anything. But I think there's a lot of stuff like when you go like transgender and demisexual and asexual and all the other types of categories that you can fit into in this spectrum, and like that gets confusing for people because it's like, wow, there's just too much of this and we didn't have this. Like, you did have it, people just didn't talk about it. There were transgendered people decades ago. It was just harder to get the surgeries and it was harder to deal with, and like now it's just more, it's the same thing with like laser eye surgery. Okay, like there was a point where all of a sudden people were like, we're gonna use lasers to fix your eyeballs, and everyone was like, yeah, but that surgery's a little iffy. And now it's like it's easier. You go in, you come out, and it's like you're less likely to go blind because the surgery's progressed. You know what I mean? Like, we progress as a society, not regress on like certain people who really want us to regress back to like the 1950s. But, you know, I'm not saying there were benefits to like ye olde times. I mean, things were certainly fucking cheaper. We also made a lot less, but like whatever. You know, but I don't know. I just feel like when I grew up, there wasn't things like that. So it was just one of those, like, you kind of had to stay in a closet. Like, so if you were gay, you stayed in the closet. I mean, I went to school with a kid who we always thought was gay. Like, we really did. And it was always like, yeah, he's probably gay the way he talks about cheerleaders. And it wasn't until later when I was in college, he was like, well, he can't, like, I ran into him one time. He's like, well, I'm gay. And I'm like, yeah, we've known since high school. And he's like, I didn't know in high school. I'm like, well, you were the last to know because the rest of us kind of figured it out. With just how obvious you'd be like, oh, look at the cheerleaders and their little skirts. Haha. And we're like, that's so gay. Like, you wouldn't, no, that's a little, you're trying too hard. Like, totally random. But you know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things, like, you're like, this is the way I am supposed to be. And like, when you're around people who have these, like, especially teenagers, have these normal hormones and you don't, it's like, yeah, no, totally, that guy's totally. And then, like, you kind of force yourself into this bubble, and then before you know it, you're in this bubble and it's not right, and you don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, you're really fucking old. And you're like, oh, oh my God, you, like me, you read a term on the freaking internet and you're like, what does this mean? And you're like, look it up and you're like, oh my God, it's like the world just like, I just fucking opened my closet and climbed out. Like, oh, I get it. Like, this makes so much sense. And it's just, it's sad that we have to put people in those little boxes and everybody's lumped in like that. But it's the way it is. And, you know, I feel like, and I think that's part of too why, I mean, honestly, I read the book before I even figured that out about myself, but I don't know, and maybe it was something about Cade's story in the book that kind of just was like, you know what? I just feel like even if you're not trans, even if you're dealing with anything where you feel like something's not right, like I'm being forced in this box and this is what I'm being told I should be, but that's not right. You know, I think everyone can identify with that. You know, this story is an extreme representation of that. It's probably one of the most difficult types of being forced into a box and having to come out of it and emerge, you know. But it's still, oh my good lord, I'm just gonna, you guys are killing me. I know. I know. We're fixing your needs because I can't handle it. But it's one of those things that I feel like everyone can identify at some point. Like, it's an extreme, yes. No one's gonna be like, oh, some people might be like, oh, I totally identify with it, or but we can all get to understand the feeling. Like, we've all been forced into some kind of box where whether it's I have to act or be a certain way, or my parents expect me to do this with my life, or you know, this is what I'm supposed to do, but this is what I want to do, like, or who I want to be. And we've all had that. We've all dealt with it in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know. And I think that's why it resonated with me. Like, we've all dealt with it and we've all dealt with those difficult situations. And to be able to kind of be confronted with it and then understand that in this situation, like in Cade's story, yes, he was able to come out and be the person that he needs to be, but there's still that kind of sadness inside that, like, I found a place that I was really happy and I felt like I belonged, but I didn't belong there either. Where do I belong? You know? And so for me, I kind of look at it like, yes, there's a bittersweetness to it, but I also feel like finding the school, like in the book, or in this case, in Jack's case, finding the Cheshire School was like, that's where you're going to find where you belong. And you're going to develop that person who you are with people who accept you for who you are, and you'll find that place at some point. It takes a long time and it's a painful journey, but you'll find it. My long-winded social rambling. So but yeah, so I mean, I know kind of big tough issues here. And like I said, I took Jack's story from the book. So if you hung around and you've read the book, you understand. If you've hung around and you haven't read the book, I do recommend it. Obviously, I think I say this every time, but we deal with things like this, and it deals with stuff like that in the book, and I just really kind of appreciated that in the story, and I really loved it, so I kind of wanted to pull it in. So that's why Jack's story is not 100% unique and original, but his story is still important nonetheless, because even if we don't have issues in the same extreme that Jack had, we all kind of understand where he's coming from. And we can kind of all identify and know that, you know what, there's been a time, there's been a box that we've been forced into, and sometimes life hands you the keys to get out of that. And sometimes life opens that door. It opens the door for you to walk through, but sometimes it just hands you the tools you need. And if you have the tools, you need to be aware of it. Pay attention. Use the tools. Be the tools. I'm sorry. But no, seriously, sometimes life just says, you know what? I've handed you so many options and opportunities. I can't open the door for you. You need to take the keys and you need to open the door yourself. And find your doorway in your heart. I'm sorry, I just want to pull in the name of the book in there. But yeah, so that's a little spacey insight for you, and life insight. And okay, somebody's doing something. The game is totally frozen. It's probably because everyone's going to school. Yeah. So, well, this is the perfect time to end it. Now that we've gone over and we talked a lot about social issues. And so, as always, leave your thoughts for our next contestant on The Price is Right, on The Story is Right. Beatrice and Sloane were tied with Jack. I went back through and counted all of the votes for everyone that we haven't had, and I kind of tallied them all at like 2 votes. So we can do Beatrice or Sloane next. I honestly, in a way, there's a part of me that wants to save Beatrice for the last before we kind of go out. I don't know if we'll get into Dinah's story a little more or not. I haven't quite decided, but I kind of almost want to put Beatrice as the last student just because I feel like her story, I really do like it a lot. But I think they're all still good. I don't want to like pimp that as like, hey, this is like, this person's way better than this person. But I do feel bad for poor Ezra because nobody loves him. He was the last character I created, and there was kind of like a part. Look at that. The game's already on him. So I do feel like his story probably didn't come as easily for me as some of the other ones. But, at least it's sort of original, and like Jack's story wasn't sort of original, but Jack had really a lot of purpose to him. But so yeah, so we have Ezra, we have Sloane, and we have Beatrice. So we have these 3 right here. But yeah, so leave your votes. I will count the prior votes for Beatrice and Sloane. Possibly, it really depends on what we get, comment-wise and whatnot. But we'll see who we have next. So yeah. Beatrice, Sloane, or Ezra, guys. We're down to the final 3. So, anyway, I will see you guys next time. Remember to give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to see more.